introduce yourselves real quick and what you do at UBT.
Thanks so much for having us, Ben. I'm Brittany Planos. I'm the Financial Literacy Program Manager for Union Bank.
Yes, Ben. Tony with Union Bank. Happy to be here. Appreciate you taking the time to visit with us. I'm a banker and have been there for 11 years now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you guys for coming in studio and doing this show for us. So this show, again, titled Financial Literacy, right here with UBT. I just want to first ask, what is your guys' goal with this show? You know, this is kind of the first episode you guys have done in a while. You know, I mean, the name might give it away a little bit with it being financial literacy, but what's your guys' goal with this show on the ticket?
I think just to have students feel more empowered around their money, feeling a little bit more confident when it comes to personal finance.
I would agree. Just letting the students know there's resources out there to help them out, and don't feel like you're on an island by yourself. Times have changed a lot since, I don't want to age myself, but when I was in college, we didn't have mobile banking and online banking and all that stuff. So knowing that you have those resources and you can look at your information instantaneously, it makes it a lot easier to kind of get yourself set on the right track when it comes to budgeting and stuff like that. Definitely.
That all makes sense. So let's just get right into the show. So this first question I'm going to ask, it might be a little bit basic, but I just want to first ask, you know, handling a budget, creating a budget for yourself, especially younger students or people coming out of high school, maybe going into college, maybe not, you know, having a full-time job and handling money, or maybe having a part-time job because you're in college. Can you guys just kind of give the basic like tips you give people, younger people, for handling a budget when you're in college or just coming out of high school?
Yeah, I think getting organized is really just step one, and a budget is just that plan to help you manage your money. It helps you to know what money you have coming in, but also where your money's going each month. So it puts you in the driver's seat of telling your money where you want it to go. It can be as restrictive or not as you want it to be, but that's really that key foundational step in order to know how much do I have at the end of the month to save or to spend, and so on. So I would say that the best budget is the one that you're going to use, whether it's a spreadsheet, whether it's an app, paper and pencil. Find what speaks to you and then go from there.
Yep, just being aware, knowing what you have coming in. Everybody's income is going to be different.
Yep.
You need to be able to identify those resources of where your income is coming from, whether it's from a job, whether it's from scholarship, whether it's from, you know, grandma and grandpa, wherever your income is coming from. You have to know what that number is on a monthly basis and compare that to your expenses, and making sure that those expenses are never above the income coming in. And so you can monitor that, you can make adjustments. I realize everybody needs to live life and have fun. But you need to stay within your means and just be aware of that. And there's a lot of tools out there today to help you with those things.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing with the budget, you know, exactly, you need to be getting more money than you're spending. And, you know, when you're in college, having to pay that big tuition fee, sometimes that is a problem for some students, you know, having debt, trying to get out of college debt free. That's been a big problem, big issue with people. So if there was a student that you're talking to who's just going into college, you know, didn't have a job during high school, you know, he's in a bunch of different activities, doesn't have a whole lot in his savings account, but he wants to go to like a four-year college, what would be the advice you would give for him to try to stay out of debt while going into college?
Yeah, I would say that it's hard, right?
Yeah, I mean, definitely.
Tuition's very expensive, even from, you know, when I was in school. I would say find all the free money that you can first. So whether that's, I would say, go for what's free. So scholarships, grants, any aid that you don't have to repay. And then from there, I would say if you're going to finance with debt, take advantage of federal student loans. Those tend to have a lower interest rate than, say, like a private student loan or a personal loan. But again, free is free. You can also earn while you learn. So work study is a great way to gain some income, even if you haven't had a previous job. Oftentimes you don't need work experience to get a job on campus. So there's plenty that are out there. You can always check with your student employment office or with the financial aid office to see what opportunities might be available.
Yep, I agree with that. I would also say just surround yourself by people that you trust and know your audience, you know, because if you're hanging around with a bunch of people who are going out and blowing money all the time or going out all the time or eating out all the time, it's easy to get into that path of doing that. And so just be aware of your surroundings, and there's a lot of resources out there for students today to be able to ask those questions and just make sure that you're, you know, we understand that some people have to take out a loan. It is what it is, and college is expensive, but you know, go visit with those resources. I know the university has resources. Find a local banker, UBT, to maybe visit with somebody about those things, and just keep yourself on track and from where you need to be financially.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, the free money, scholarships, grants, that's all great. And again, having good grades in high school, or, if it's an athletic scholarship, can go towards that. But, saying with the loan, I want to get into the different kinds of loans for students. I know this might be a little bit hairy, but I know there was a big question I had when I was coming to college. I saw subsidized and then unsubsidized. Sure. And I was always like, which one is better? Which one do you do? And I would always have to look it up and try to make the best decision that I thought. But I want to ask the professionals here. Can you kind of talk about the difference between that a little bit? Because, I mean, that's not too much in the weeds. Pretty basic knowledge that a lot of people want to be able to know. Difference between subsidized and unsubsidized, which one you should take. It may be different for other people, but what's your take on it?
Absolutely. So step one would be completing the FAFSA, so the free application for federal student aid. That's how you would become eligible for
every year
that you're in school. Yes, absolutely.
It's so much fun. It's so much
much fun. So not just senior year, but yes, every year that you're in school, even as a grad student too. But so federal student loans, all students should be eligible for the most part for unsubsidized student loans. Subsidized student loans are going to be based on income eligibility. So not every student will qualify for subsidized student loans. However, if you do qualify for those, it's better to take those out. Essentially, the government, the Department of Ed, subsidizes that interest. So you are accruing interest while you take those student loans out while you're a student in school, but you don't have to pay that back. The government is covering that. Where with unsubsidized student loans, you're accruing interest on that loan as soon as you take that out, even while you're a student in school. So I would say if you do take out unsubsidized student loans, it's good to make interest payments here and there while you're in school. That will keep that overall payment down and keep it from compounding and becoming more of a bill later on when you have to go to pay that back. But those are kind of the two types. Other federal aid that students might be eligible for could be like Pell Grants, SEOG grants. There's lots of other grants. A lot of it depends on your household size, income, other factors, but most students are going to be eligible for unsubsidized student loans.
See, I know a big example for me was when I first went to college, my brother was also in college. So my family and I qualified for subsidized. But then when my brother went out of college, again, so then it was only one kid's in college, then we didn't qualify for a subsidized loan.
Right.
So it's just the difference between all that is kind of just it's just fascinating to me because, it's not really that much different, I feel like, for my parents financially when my brother was in college because my brother's paying for his college, but the way FAFSA looks like that, it's just a little interesting. It's just kind of interesting for me.
Yeah.
So going into, scholarships, debt, a big way, in my opinion, to be able to pay off those debt is to actually go and have a job because there's a lot of kids and students. I'm not wanting to judge or do anything, but a lot of people are in college and don't even have a job. And I feel like it's going to be a hard time to not go into debt if you don't have a job. Can you kind of touch on that a little bit? The benefits of even having a part-time job being able to help you with paying off some of that debt.
Absolutely. I would say kind of backtracking a little bit with student loans, it's really important to take out only what you need and can afford to repay.
Exactly.
So, for example, if you are offered $20-some thousand for the year for unsubsidized student loans, you don't have to take all of that. You can only take what you need for, say, tuition if you plan to live at home. So I think really thinking about your living costs and tuition costs and what you actually need just to reduce the amount borrowed in the first place.
Yeah.
But from there, work study, again, I can't stress this enough as being a great option for students. It's so flexible to have a job on campus. Oftentimes it works your student first, so they work with your student schedule in between classes. You might have a shift at the front desk at a residence hall. You can go to class and then come back. So lots of flexibility there. It's probably not going to be a lot to cover, tuition or anything like that, but it works around your student schedule. Plus, I mean, there's lots of, opportunities around campus. Restaurants, it gets busy during Husker season, even if you're just busy seasonally. But I think it's important to have a job. It can help you with repaying those student loans, but also just reducing some of your costs, throughout the year, help you to save a little bit. But it can certainly help and gain some skills along the way, too.
Absolutely. I agree with all that. And outside of that, the best thing, too, about, working while you're in college is developing relationships and gaining experience. So, there's a lot of great local companies in Lincoln, Nebraska. And whatever your major is or whatever you're interested in, do some research and you're going to be able to build relationships and get yourself out there, gain some experience, and that could help set the stage for the next step when you graduate for your career. There's a lot of internships out there, so find something you're passionate about, and it's not always about the money. It's about building those relationships and those connections
Exactly.
and getting your name out there. Like Ben, I mean, you're working here right now and you're
Yeah.
in school. So think about all the things you've gained as far as relationships and people you've met just by going out there and getting a job somewhere while in school.
I mean, yeah, especially in my field, journalism, sports media, you have to go get a job. Like honestly, experience on my resume is more important than the number by my GPA and the diploma. I need the diploma, and the number by my GPA is important, but like if you don't have that experience, it doesn't matter.
And employers are also going to see that.
Exactly.
You went out there, not only got your degree, but you were responsible enough to get a job and carry both of those at the same time. Get good grades, but also show responsibility to be committed to a place of employment.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it looks great, and it's a great thing to do in college because sometimes, the waking up, going to school, going home, going to sleep. I mean, sometimes that'd be boring. A job is a great way, if you're doing, especially if you're doing what you love to do in that job. In case my job is in my field, it's a great thing to do outside of college. But even in my opinion, even if students don't feel like they have enough time, during college, during like the semester to have a job on top of school, I definitely want to say during summer, I feel like a job during the summer is definitely a great time to get a job because then you can actually work full time. Because if you're not in college during the summer, you can work 40 hours in a week, and it would be a great way to help pay off some of those loans, because that's been the nice thing about this summer for me is I've been able to take on more hours and the paychecks are bigger. And when the paychecks are bigger, it's a lot nicer, it looks a lot better in your bank account, and you're not in as much debt. And that, I mean, if you want to maybe go into that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd also say look for employers too that offer a tuition benefit.
Yeah.
I mean, even UBT for part-time employees, we offer a tuition benefit. So that's huge. So if you can have your employer pay for some of that too, that's always great.
It's always great when, money is awesome. So,
Ben, real quick, I want to comment on that. I would say that one thing you need to do during the summertime when you are making more money is to also think about funding that savings account and setting money aside. And not necessarily thinking, oh my gosh, I'm making all this money now. I'm going to go ahead and spend it and buy this, and this. During that summer, those summer months, that's your opportunity to build up that savings account to prepare yourself for when you're not working full time and something comes up that's unexpected. You've built yourself a nice savings account to help you sleep at night, to know that, hey, if something comes up, I've got something sitting there earning interest on my money.
That's exactly where I was going to go towards next was, having money in your savings versus checking how much you should be saving. Can you kind of just go into that a little bit? Because, I mean, when I first opened a bank account, the first thing I opened was savings. But then when I came to college, I had to open a checking so I can go be paying for stuff. So I have a checking and a savings. And sometimes it's hard to know how much money you should have in each, or if you should also have a money in like a CD or something at a bank. I mean, can you kind of just talk about maybe percentages of how much you think you should have in a savings versus checking, or even a CD? Just kind of go into that a little bit.
Sure, yeah. There's no hard and fast rule.
Yeah.
There's a few rules of thumb. One I like is the 50-30-20 rule, which just says that, spend 50% on the things that you need to buy, like your rent and other living expenses, gas, food. 30% can go to wants and 20% can go to savings. So that can be really different for everybody. But I think the key is just consistently saving. So, and make it automated. If you do get paid, have a certain percentage of your paycheck or an amount go to your savings each month where you don't even touch it. Have it do it automatically. So kind of force yourself to save where you don't even see that, because if everything kind of ends up in your checking account, it gets really messy.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to add to that, Tody.
Yeah, I'd love to add to that. So I agree with what Brittany said. Also, when you're in college, your life and your expenses look different than when you're married, have a mortgage, have other expenses.
3 kids.
Yeah, 3 kids. But I would just say try to keep 3 months worth of your expenses in a savings account. And then also make sure that you, wherever you're banking, preferably UBT, go visit with a banker about options to earn interest on your money, because there's a lot of promos they run throughout the year. Sometimes they'll do a CD promo, and you could take some of your money and stick it in there for 6 months and earn a much better rate of return versus just a standard savings account. So just don't let it sit there. If you're building up a nice little cushion in your savings account, it's earning 0.05%. Go visit with your banker and say, hey, what other options do I have to earn some better return on my money?
That's kind of what I want to go to next was CDs, because I didn't put money in a CD until probably like a year ago. And the interest is definitely a lot better. It's not like, oh my gosh, I'm rich now, but it's still a way better, return than, in the savings. In the savings, I mean, I'm not going to get that much back. And you said the percentage. Can you kind of talk about, how CDs work, the difference between that and savings account, and why maybe a CD might be more beneficial for a college student than a savings account.
Yeah, I'll unpack the language of CD really quick because when I first heard CD, I thought of like Britney Spears mixtape.
Yeah, putting a CD in a car, trying to play music. That's what I thought of too.
What is this, right? So
that's what everyone thinks of.
It's a certificate of deposit. So essentially, it's just like a special type of savings account where you earn a higher interest rate, but in return, you don't take that money out for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
So there's CDs as short as a month. There's CDs sometimes as long as 5 years. I would say 6 months, 12 months.
Yeah,
that's
6,
common.
7.
Yeah,
kind of the way
so
I
you
see
can kind
it
of pick, but you just don't touch it. But in return, you get a higher savings rate. So usually you have to have a certain amount that you put in, like a minimum. For example, it might be like $1,000. But yeah, as Tony shared, it's a great way to kind of let your money grow, especially for some of those shorter term goals. Maybe you're saving up to buy a car.
Yeah.
Maybe you're saving up for, to hopefully pay for tuition, maybe your final year of college. So there's lots of ways that you can use those funds.
Yeah, the key is just making sure you're okay with it being in there for the term. So if you pick a 6-month term or a 12-month term or a 3-year term, whatever that is, just know that, hey, that money has to sit there and stay there for that term, because if you have to pull it out early, you have to pay a forfeiture fee, and it kind of makes it not worth putting it in the CD. So just committing to it, knowing it's going to sit there and earn a better rate of return for you, but you know you can't touch that during the term of that CD.
Yeah, and my thing I like the most about CDs was, when you go into investing and, you're talking about stock market and all that stuff, sometimes that's a little scary to college students that don't know too much about it and they don't want to lose the little money that they might have. I feel like a CD might be a good alternative where you could still make a decent amount of interest on the money you have, but you don't have, there's no risk to a CD. You're not going to lose any money. It's literally like you are guaranteed if you keep it in the account for this long, you're gonna make this much money. And I feel like that's a good alternative to sometimes stock market when some people don't know too much about the stock market to be able to put money in there.
I agree.
Absolutely.
So going next, talking about credit card, because before we go to break, we have like 3 minutes left before we go to break. I want to quick touch on credit cards versus using credit cards versus cash. What's your guys' opinion on that? Because I know I've heard some people say you should never use a credit card, but then other people are like, a credit card, if you use it responsible, it can be a good tool for you. What is kind of your guys' take on credit card versus cash when it comes to students or even just anybody in general?
Yeah, I think that you kind of hit the nail there, Ben. It's a tool. So it's not inherently good or bad. It's how it's used. And it can open up a lot of doors, but it can also get you into trouble if not used well. But credit cards will help you to build a credit score, which is really important for loans and lending, especially if you want to buy a house or you want to buy a car later on down the road. Most people it's hard to afford life's bigger purchases just paying solely in cash. We usually have to borrow at some point in our lives. And so a credit score is a key component of things that a lender will look at as they're looking to lend to you. So yes, you might need a down payment, but you also need a certain credit score. So using a credit card, that can help you to build that. There's other ways as well, but usually that's kind of a quick path. One thing that I would recommend would be like a secured credit card or a student credit card. Those can be good options as you're getting started. So it allows you to kind of build that credit without having, a lot of credit history, and also without being approved for a super high limit that might be difficult to manage as you're kind of getting the hang of it. But essentially, using cash, you pay as you go. The money you have in your checking account is what you have to spend. But with a credit card, it's essentially a loan. So you're borrowing money from the bank or whoever your card issuer is right there and then in that transaction. And then at the end of the month, you just have to pay that back on time and then in full. Otherwise, you're charged late fees or interest on top of that. So just learning how to kind of borrow and pay back and borrow and pay back.
Yeah, I agree. With a credit card, the word that comes to mind is responsibility. So credit cards are great. They'll help you build credit. The great thing is you just have to know that, when you're using that credit card, it needs to be paid in full in 30 days, right? If you keep transferring over that debt, because a lot of financial institutions want you to not pay it in full, right?
That's how they make money.
Exactly. They're earning interest on you.
Business.
And that interest is like 20%. So credit card debt is by far the worst debt you can get yourself into. And it's very hard to climb out of that hole if you get yourself into credit card debt. So just know that for me, if you're going to establish a credit card in college, set the limit low, right? So if $500 a month is enough for you, then set it at $500. That way you can't go above that. And you're not going to snowball out of control in credit card debt. The other great thing about credit cards is fraud protection. So when you're out and about, there's a lot of mean people in this world and people who like to hack systems and stuff like that. And if you're using a debit card all the time, that debit card's tied right to your checking account and your money. With a credit card, it's not tied to your money; it's tied to credit. So if you're using your credit card, to purchase things and something happens, it's easy to mitigate that risk and shut it down right away.
Then when it comes right out of your account.
And find the things that work for you to use your credit card, whether that would be gas, groceries. I wouldn't recommend if you're going out to the bars, if you're of age, to take your credit card downtown, because you're probably going to get yourself like, I'll keep buying. It's all good. I got my credit card, and you're using it for the wrong reasons. You're not thinking about how much money you're spending.
Yeah. I mean, and the nice thing, a lot of places, credit cards, you have the apps where you can track your spending and all that. Because sometimes it's hard to keep track. Okay, how much have I spent this month? Blah, blah, blah. The credit card can keep track of it. So for me, I use my card, gas, groceries, and then fast food.
Yep.
Those are the three things I buy. And then, sometimes you have to buy something for if I need to buy some clothes, I'll use a credit card. But again, I know how much that is. My favorite thing about credit card is also you get money back on it. And
rewards.
And that sometimes people are like, oh man, I get $5 back if I spend this much. I know that can get a little tricky for some people, but because you're still spending more than you're getting back, but you're still getting back something compared to a debit card where you don't get anything back. You're not adding credit or anything. I'm not really trying to dog on debit cards at all. Maybe you guys want to touch on debit card, maybe good things about that versus a credit card.
I think, most people have both. I think that having a debit card, it's helpful if you need to access cash, right there and then in the moment, which is helpful. And so for some people, they really have a hard time with borrowing. And so maybe a debit card might be better for them just based on knowing that they just have trouble with money management. So it's unique to everybody. But again, just those benefits of the cash back, the security with a credit card, and then being able to earn those rewards. There's a lot of perks while building your credit score that I'd pref a credit card, but it does take practice. It does take time to learn how to use it and feel comfortable. Like
you said, responsible. There's a lot of tools. Like if you use social media responsibly, it's a great tool to be able to learn new things, have fun on it. But again, social media,
And Ben, you mentioned something earlier about you have a credit card and you have that set up on auto pay.
Yes,
that's what you need to do.
Yes, I forgot to say that auto pay. That's something when I first opened my credit card up, my sister's like, turn on auto pay right away. So then it has to take it out of your account right away, and then until you turn it off. It's very nice tool. I don't even have to worry about it. It sends me I get a text and it's like your credit card is paid, and it shows me how much it was. I'm like, okay, great, and it's a great way to be able to keep track how much you're spending your credit card, and also with my app, I can see if if I'm spending more, less. That's just my favorite thing about that. With cash, sometimes it's hard to keep track of all that. If you're not as good keeping track of your finances, a credit card is a great way to be able to keep track. Technology will just keep track of it right away.
Yep.
But with that, I'm going to throw it to break. When we come back, we'll maybe get into more of the student-athlete part of budgeting and financial literacy when it comes to NIL. It'll be a very interesting conversation. You're listening to Financial Literacy with UBT right here on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Welcome back into Financial Literacy with UBT, Union Bank and Trust. Again, we got Brittany and Tony in studio with me. I'm Ben. I'm running the ones and twos. They're the financial gurus here. I'm just here along for the ride to give my perspective. We talked a lot about, just the average college student, younger person coming out of high school, maybe going into college. Let's maybe go more into a different kind of college student who maybe, student athletes who are now earning NIL. I know you guys kind of want to touch on that. Can you kind of touch on NIL, from the bank's perspective? How do you guys deal with NIL? Who do people go, student athletes, how do they come approach you about NIL? How do they approach you with it?
Yeah, so Ben, NIL can be, first of all, very overwhelming because it's very new. So when it first came out, everybody was like, man, this is like the wild, wild west. And most student athletes today, everybody's situation's different. And so I don't want to get into the weeds too much about some of this stuff. I just want to kind of keep it high level. But I would suggest that if you are a student athlete and you're receiving NIL money, that you should definitely set up a single member LLC, which is a separate business account. You're creating a separate business account, whatever name you want, and be able to separate that money from your personal money. So that helps you for just protecting yourself a little bit, and especially from the tax consideration side of it, you'd want to set a little bit of money aside to cover the taxes on the NIL money you're receiving. And then you can also find ways to earn interest on that money. So just creating separation from your personal money compared to your NIL money is extremely important. And then that allows you to kind of focus on your brand and what you're looking for moving forward.
Talking about NIL, a lot of these students, especially, comes to football, getting a lot of money, even upwards of $1 to $2 million. Can you kind of talk about, again, I know we kind of talked about budgets a little bit, but it can be a lot, again, like you said, overwhelming for a student to be handling that much money. Can you kind of talk about, maybe resources that they can go to be able to maybe help with managing their money or, budgeting when it comes to that?
Absolutely. So with NIL, create that LLC, and you'd want to go work with an attorney to do that. They'll help you prepare an EIN number, which is a tax identification number. They'll establish that business entity. Then you go to the bank, preferably UBT, and you can work with a banker to establish that basic business checking account. They'll allow you. They'll tell you exactly all the information you'll need. You'll get that to them, and then I would highly suggest visiting with a financial planner as well. We have those resources at UBT. I think the university has some resources as well, but because everybody's situation is different and the amount of money they're receiving from NIL, you want to make sure you're protected and you're putting those funds to best serve your individual needs.
Yeah, it could be a lot, and there's a lot of details that go into it. With this whole new world of NIL that people are in, there's a lot of just uncertainty, a lot of misinformation also when it comes to NIL. If somebody were to come to you, a student athlete come to you to ask about NIL, what would kind of be, what would be like the first main tips that you give? I know you gave the LLC, but what are kind of maybe some other resources or directions that maybe you'd point somebody to? Yeah,
I definitely would get the LLC created, open up a basic business account, create the separation from your personal funds to your NIL funds, and then I would find a financial planner to visit with too about where you want to go with this money and grow from there, because there's just so many different directions you can go with it. And then also making sure you've got a CPA that you trust from the tax side of it, making sure your taxes are filed correctly with your NIL funds.
And that was kind of where I was going to go to next, taxes. And this can, apply to anybody, not just student athletes with NIL. Taxes, that was kind of the scariest thing for me as a student when I first came to college. Was I filed taxes by myself for the first time this year, and it was just very confusing, kind of not really knowing what I was doing, what I was supposed to do. Was I supposed to claim myself? Was I not supposed to claim myself? What would kind of be, again, some resources when it comes to, claiming taxes that you guys would kind of give?
Yeah, I think everybody's situation is so different.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. I would say for the average student, the VITA clinic at UNL is a great resource. So this is a volunteer income tax assistance program. So it allows most students, and community members in general, to file their taxes for free. I would say when you have a big NIL deal or quite a bit of money coming in, or just a more complicated tax situation, like Tony mentioned, it's good to have a CPA or an accountant that can help you, with your taxes. So taxes can be structured so differently depending on whether you're considered an employee or whether you're considered, a sole proprietor. So there's different forms, for example, like a W-4 or a W-9. So It gets confusing. It's just alphabet soup, right? And so I think having that professional that can sort of guide you through that and knowing, what documents do you need. I think it's really good to stay organized too, having a place where you keep all of your files, your receipts, any contracts that you have, keeping them in a place where you can access them easily. That's really important. Good record keeping, I think, when it comes time for taxes, and communicating with your family too. Are they going to claim you? Are you claiming yourself?
Yeah.
There's lots of questions, right? So this is where, a tax professional really comes in handy, and I think is well worth, investing in, finding somebody that can listen to your needs and really, unpack that with you.
Yeah, because it is so different, we're not going to, get into, the nitty-gritty of it. But again, you guys are willing to have those conversations, though. If there's people that are wanting to have those conversations, wanting someone to consult with, you guys are there willing to lend an ear, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, there's a lot of resources at the bank, and we would be able to sit down, visit with those student athletes about their picture, and it's just a matter of bringing it full circle and find out, what makes the most sense for this individual person. Yeah,
because again, it is so different for everybody. But you kind of talk about, files, keeping files. I know you want to touch on some certain files that you feel that a lot of that college students should make sure that they have on hand. So when they're filing taxes or anything, that they make sure they have access to those. What are kind of some of those files that you were talking about?
Yeah, I would say that one thing that is really key, I think, especially for student athletes as they head into school, is making sure that they have their HIPAA authorization. So that's kind of allows your doctors, any healthcare providers to communicate with your family. So, for example, if you were to get injured or you were to get hurt, your family has that information, they can contact the hospital or wherever you end up, right? And they can communicate there. It might also be good to have any healthcare power of attorney documents done. So if you are injured, even also, taking a look at your parents' insurance. What do they have? What does the university provide? I know most students can stay on their parents' plan through, age 26, but at the same time, that might not still be enough insurance. Maybe you need to have critical accident or injury insurance. So things like that, just to take a look before you head to school for the fall to make sure that you're covered for worst case scenario. I know we don't like to think about that, but I feel like it's really important.
It's important, yeah. Because, you don't think about it until it happens. And then if you're not prepared or you don't have the necessary resources, then that's when you're like, man, I should have done this, should have done that. Again, we're here trying to prevent some of those could have, should have, would haves. Again, so making sure you have all those is also very important. One thing I kind of want to touch on a little bit, again, with insurance, I know you guys maybe don't deal with that too much, but is there any tips or anything you guys have when it comes to, insurance for younger people?
Yeah, I would say find an insurance broker. So a broker kind of works in your best interest. So rather than for any one specific company, they're kind of looking out there in the world to see what's good for you and what insurances might be best for you in your situation. So they're going to try to connect you to product services that kind of fit your lifestyle, your financial picture, to make sure that you have enough, liability coverage, health coverage, those types of things. So that's what I would recommend. It would be looking at a broker. Again, they kind of look 360 at your situation rather than maybe just an agent who would be at a specific company. An agent can be a good place to start as well, though. I would say even wherever you're currently insured might be a good starting point.
And most financial planners that you work with, they're looking to look full picture, and they will talk about the insurance part of it as well.
Interesting. Because I know just hearing about insurance and everything, I know there's a lot of people that get frustrated. Insurance can be frustrating because, again, something, say, happens to your house. Well, it's like, well, you didn't read the fine print. Well, this isn't partly covered by that. So, like you said, maybe, and I feel like a lot of those might be, again, those bigger companies. I'm not going to name any names, but, if you get a personal insurance broker that can, really help you with your best interest, not just, again, insurance is a business. It's all about trying to make money. So a lot of times these bigger companies maybe don't have your best interest at heart. So would you feel like insurance brokers, more personally connect with you instead of those bigger companies?
I think they just operate in a different way. I wouldn't say that any agency would be acting with malicious intent.
Well, I don't mean like that, but I'm not saying like that. But it is a money business. So a lot of times I feel like there's fine print that a lot of people don't know about, or there's a fine detail that somebody wasn't made aware of. It's not that they didn't tell them. It's it's not that they're trying to hide it. They just didn't know.
I think that's where a financial planner really does come in handy. Like Tony mentioned, they're going to be able to help look over documents with you and to make sure that you understand, your policies and coverage, and kind of walk through that with you to help you determine what makes sense for you, and kind of getting into the legalese, I feel like, of some of these documents, because yes, insurance is complicated. One thing I would say that I can't stress enough for college students, especially if you're living off campus, is to have renter's insurance. So it's a very small fee. I would say on average around $15 or so a month, but that covers all of your personal possessions if you're living off campus. Like if you're in an apartment or a house, a lot of times students don't realize that your dwelling might be covered by your landlord, but your personal items are not. So it's really good if you have a laptop, if you've got furniture, just to have that policy. It's a small price for peace of mind. Things happen, so it's really good to have a renter's insurance policy.
And I would say with insurance, get a second opinion. Don't go with the first person you visit with. And if you do receive a insurance quote from somebody, make sure that you're reviewing that with somebody that you trust, one of your resources, and making sure you're not getting sold a policy that doesn't make sense for you personally and where you are with your life and what you have going on.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with all that. Is there another topic you guys want to go into, or I was kind of going to go?
Ben, you mentioned something earlier off air about a Roth IRA.
That's exactly where I was. That's exactly where my mind was going.
Man, I've been waiting to talk about this. You were raving about how much you love that Roth IRA you opened up.
I don't know about raving. You guys making me feel like I'm some kind of financial guru that just love. No, I was just talking about. I just got introduced to Roth IRA this last tax. I made sure I put it in March, so it was before this this last tax year. Just the difference between a Roth IRA or just the regular stock market, and how Roth IRA is for your retirement. So again, it's taxed right away. I know you guys can go more into this, but it's taxed right away. But when you take it out for retirement, it's not taxed.
Correct.
So so just like right when you retire, you just get this big sum of money that's not taxed, and it's a really nice cushion for when you retire. Because someone like me, I'm in radio. I'm not gonna be making the big bucks at all times. So having that Roth IRA, putting it away, so that accumulates that interest. So when I do retire, it'll be a nice benefit to have. But you guys can go maybe in a little bit more specifics about it.
Yeah, now's a perfect time to open up a Roth IRA, because most student athletes and most students they're going to be eligible for it, right? If you're way further along in your career and you're making a bunch of money, a lot of people don't qualify for a Roth IRA, but it's a great way to start saving for retirement is the whole point. And so they're free to open up. There's not a lot of fees associated with them. And you're going to get a much better rate of return typically with that than you would a CD or a money market account. The other thing is, if you're a student athlete and you're one of the fortunate ones to be, have an amazing NIL contract with somebody and you're receiving some pretty good funds, you can open up a traditional IRA account with an institution, and you'll be able to deduct that from your taxes. So let's say that you're receiving $200,000 in NIL funds, and you contribute the max of $23,000 into that retirement account. You can deduct that from your taxes of what you pay.
Interesting.
So there's huge advantages to that, and again, it's a matter of like talking about the fees and making sure that you're with somebody that is looking out with your best interest in mind.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact, the saving for retirement is just the thing that I always looked at. Because when I had a CD, I liked my CD, compared to my savings because of how much I was making on that. But, a Roth IRA, is it a lot like, stock market where, you might lose a little bit of money on that, but over the long run, if I put it in at 20 and I take it out when I'm 70, that's 50 years. Isn't the old average of it should go up 7%? Is that kind of it? Does it work a lot like the stock market in that way, over time?
It does. Typically in a Roth IRA, you're going to be in a blended portfolio. So you're not out there buying a bunch of individual stocks that are risky and stuff like that. So you're going to be in a blended portfolio that's going to earn, your typical market rate of return, and that rate of return historically has always been much higher than a CD rate.
Yeah, because the thing that I want to stress is, I know when I first opened it, I know my financial advisor was like, you can look at it and track it, but he's like, don't be worried if it goes down or anything. Like, don't be looking at it every day and stressing out about it. Like, just know that over time it will gain money.
Yeah, it's going to be 30 years before you're going to touch this money, 30 or 40 years where you're going to touch this money. So just ignore it and let it ride.
Yeah, because if it doesn't gain anything, that's just very highly unlikely. Like Roth IRA, that's my favorite thing about it, is just allowing the accumulation of interest and just not even having to worry about it. Because I just put it in there, and I'm not even looking at it at all.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing, because my checking and everything. I'm always tracking and looking at that. It's nice to have somebody be like, okay, I know I have X amount of money in Roth IRA, and I just know it's in there, and I don't even have to worry about it. I just know I have that money.
Yep.
So is there anything else you guys want to touch on before we throw it to break and wrap up the show?
No, I think it goes back to automation too. I love that you have your Roth IRA. That's another thing that you can automate, from when you get paid, putting just a small amount aside. Over time, you don't see it out of sight, out of mind. So automation is your friend. You can save surprisingly a lot of money over many years just with, good, consistent habits, no matter how small.
Yeah, and again, I want to stress, the financial advisors be able to help you with all this. Again, at UBT, you guys are always willing to lend an ear, always willing to give some advice. Can you again give you guys' names, how that people can reach you?
Yeah, so I'm Tony at UBT, and my email is tony.miller@ubt.com. You can email me anytime. And the good thing about UBT is we're a local bank. We're heavily involved in the community, and we have a lot of resources there. So you've got your standard deposit relationship, lending relationship. We have a wealth management team with certified financial planners, and we're all about relationship and looking out for the client's best interest, and we're never going to get somebody involved in something that doesn't make sense for them. So there's a lot of resources there that we have, And, we care a lot about Lincoln in the community, and we'd love to be able to answer any questions that anybody might have.
That's awesome. Do you have something you were going to say?
I was just going to say you can reach our financial literacy program, just UBT/Finlit on our website. There's a form that you can fill out if you need help with personal finance, whether it is budgeting or deciding on a credit card or just some general basics. I'm able to help you with that. And as Tony shared, we work as a team. So if there's questions that I can refer you out to an expert within UBT, I'm a great, kind of first line of resource.
That's the
word I would honestly say, if somebody wants to reach out to Brittany right away, and then she can kind of take it from there.
Yeah, because UBT has a whole page on their website about financial literacy, so make sure to go check it out, ubt.com/Finlit. But with that, we're going to throw it to break. When we come back, we're just going to wrap up the show, preview the next episode that you guys are going to have, maybe have a special guest. All that and more is going to be coming up right here on Financial Literacy on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Welcome back into the final segment of Financial Literacy right here with UBT on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Again, we got Brittany and Tony in studio. This kind of time, we're just going to wrap up all of our thoughts, everything we kind of covered today. Brittany, I know you kind of wanted to go into. Can you kind of just recap everything that's kind of been, I know we said a lot today, but if you can kind of recap, just the basic headlines, what you kind of want to make sure people take away from this conversation.
Yeah, I think just really step one with money management is just to get organized. So having that budget, and again, the best tool is the one that you're going to use. So find, what speaks to you. There's a lot of great resources that are out there. Even on UBT's page, we have a learning center where you can download budgets, like a spreadsheet template, or if you have a paper pencil one that you use, an app. Figure out where your money's coming and going. That's a good way to kind of figure out what you might have left over each month to be able to save or to invest. As we talked about, there's lots of different ways to save. There's not one size that fits all. If you want to have a short-term goal, savings account is good for that. Even a couple months out, a CD might be good. For longer term, a Roth IRA. So not all savings vessels are equal. It depends on your goals. So but the best thing to know, too, is that you don't have to be alone in figuring all of this out. You can have lots of professionals that are out there to help provide guidance and support. And so I would say that, getting organized. So get your budget going. Figure out your checking and savings. It's good to keep money separate there. Automate savings. That's really important, too. For those of you with NIL money coming in, it's good to have your separate business account from your personal account, so keeping your money separate. And again, there might be some legal things there too with setting up an LLC. So it's always good to talk to an attorney or professional to set up those structures and to get organized. But I guess we're here to help. If you need to reach us, you can reach us at ubt.com/Finlit. We have a form on our webpage. You're welcome to reach out with any questions that you have. And if there's questions where I can get you in contact with Tony or anybody else on our team, I'm happy to make that referral for you.
Yeah, I would just recap that. Brittany pretty much nailed all of it there, but I would just say that just know that you're not on your own. You're here to help. If you feel like you're frustrated or it's overwhelming, there's so many people you can go to. Maybe start with your trusted relationships, if that's your parents, if it's your uncle, if it's a close friend, or stop by UBT. I know that any banker would be willing to help point them in the right direction and just kind of get started on the right track. And once you get going, you're going to really take an interest in it, like you do, Ben. Yeah. I can tell that you're passionate about this. You got started on it. You're checking your accounts on a daily, weekly basis. You're looking at your budget. You have a credit card. You're making sure it's on auto pay. You started that Roth IRA account. And so once you do that, you're going to find a passion for it, and you're going to see this continue to grow and see your financial life continue to improve. Yeah. And the whole point is you started early, and that's going to pay huge dividends for you down the road.
Yeah, my favorite thing about it is just that, it just gives me peace of mind that I'm being smart with my money.
Yes.
Again, when I was,
and you should be proud of that.
Yeah, and when I was graduating high school, my goal was to graduate college debt free, and if everything goes according to plan, that should happen. And I didn't work at all during high school. I worked during the 2 summers when I turned 16. I worked during the summer of my junior year and then senior year. But other than that, I wasn't working during school. It's not like I had this huge savings account all saved up. But again, with scholarships, because I was my GPA at school, I was able to get some scholarships. Working during college, again, being smart with savings and stuff. It's allowed me to be able to go through college debt free. I've not had to take. I think I've taken out one subsidized loan, and that was it.
Amazing.
And
that's great.
So,
and the other thing here that I want to mention is there's going to be bumps in the road.
Oh yeah,
right.
There always is.
So there's going to be bumps in the road, but set goals for yourself. You can still live life and do things and go purchase something you might want, but just budget for it. Just know, like, hey, I really want to buy this new Mac computer, or I really want to buy a new set of golf clubs. It doesn't mean you can't do those things. It just means that you need to budget for it and prepare for it, and not get yourself into credit card debt and spend money that you don't have. So just be responsible, budget for it, put a plan together, visit with your resources, and then everything will be great, and you'll be proud of what you've accomplished.
Every time I hear credit card debt, I think of the Family Guy song. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't.
I'll have to show it to you. Peter Griffin was singing a song about credit card debt, and it was really funny. Every time you say that, it just reminds me of that. I'll have to show it to you after the show. It's kind of funny.
Sounds good.
But yeah, this was Financial Literacy right here on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Next time you guys are on, you guys are going to have Chancellor Bruinting on, a former Husker football player, so you guys can maybe get more into the student athlete angle of financial literacy, with NIL. He graduated a little before NIL really hit the scene, but again, from the student athlete perspective, because I'm just a regular college student, I don't have that student athlete perspective, so that'll be a cool next episode when you guys have him on. But with that, we're gonna end the show up there. I was Ben. I'm here with Tony and Brittany from UBT, and this was Financial Literacy right here on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.